welcome back to the Goodreads Virtual Book Club. I'm Brianna. This month we read something a little bit different. We read a children's book called Ghost Squad by Claribel A Ortega. This one was a super cute read. It is perfect for middle graders or adults like us who enjoy reading different kids' books. So Ghost Squad centers around the really lovely friendship between Lucely and her best friend Sid and their families. Lucely lives with her father and a myriad of ghost relatives, all who have passed away. And Sid lives with her parents. We don't get to meet her parents as much, but we do get to meet her grandmother, Babette. And so the story just kind of starts laying the background of these two characters and their friendship, and with a major problem. The major problem being that Lucely's dad runs a ghost tour business that is not doing so great. And the landlord comes up to them and is saying that you have like a month to prove that you can pay your rent in full. If you don't, we're gonna take your property. So there's already a lot of pressure around keeping that property. But then to add more pressure to this situation, weird things start happening with Lucely's ghost family. So these ghosts present themselves as fireflies until they become into their human or ghostly human forms. And one thing, and I'll link it below, is the author's website has a lot of really fun, cool facts, including discussion questions if you wanted to read this book with kids, with family, however you would like. But there is firefly folklore from the Dominican Republic. And so it says, namitas or fireflies are a very common sight in the country around the open fields in the Dominican Republic. The males have bright tail lights that flashes, hoping to get a return flash, saying that the female is interested. These fireflies or lightning bugs also have superstition around them that says that the fireflies are the souls of the dead who are watching over their loved ones who are still living. They shine their light, reminding all who see that they are always there watching, which is definitely a huge part in this story, as Lucely has a really close relationship with all of these fireflies or ancestors, family members who have passed away. She's a very close connection with all of them, and they're all very protectful and protecting of her and the family. And it also kind of gives Lucely sense that she has to protect them as well. And that's when the weird things start happening with her fireflies, who kind of live in and around this magical tree in their yard. So it's during one of the ghost tours at night. Lucely is supposed to be like providing the spooky noises and the ambiance in the dad's ghost tours, when her grandmother just disappears, like screams and disappears from the cemetery, and Lucely ends up inadvertently ruining this ghost tour, and so her dad has to provide refunds for all of these people. And that kind of leads Lucely down this path of she wants to not only help her dad and help his financial situation, but also figure out what is happening with her grandmother and what the other fireflies or ghostly presences are experiencing, because she's really worried that she's gonna lose them. And that's a big part of the book, is a sense of grief and processing grief. Lucely, her mom, it's not mentioned as exactly to why, but her mom is no longer living with her and her dad. It said that she left them both. So it's really like her and her dad against the world. And so she's already dealing with and processing a lot of grief. And this, I think, is just a very external form of processing this grief. But with her best friend, Sid, who is like vows to help her in any way she can, they are trying to figure out what could be happening to these fireflies. And naturally, they think of Sid's grandmother, Babette, who is a witch. And she has, it's called Babette's Baubles, but she has this little store where she sells very kind of cool witchy things. And so they immediately go, not necessarily to ask her, but they know that she has a very secret hidden room that they found one time that's for sure gonna have the solution to this problem, because they're determined they're gonna solve it themselves. It's also around Halloween, which is kind of a perfect setting for a ghost story. And so the town is also putting on a big Halloween shindig, and they're learning about a lot of different things in their town that happened in the past. This has very much Hocus Pocus vibes, if you do like the movie Hocus Pocus. But they had a coven of witches who were in their Florida town in the 1800s that left quite a mark on the town. And so she's learning about that in school, and that kind of makes them like the light bulb dings, and they think, oh, Babette will for sure have something about this coven of witches. And it turns out that she does, but they do manage to find this secret room and snag a spell that they don't exactly know what it does, but they're convinced that it's gonna help Lucely's fireflies. So they make this plan to go in a cemetery at night, because, you know, that's the only time you can go in a cemetery is at nighttime to do your spell casting. And they go to the cemetery with the spell in hand and a feline friend whose name is Chunk. Chunk is a lot more than just a mere feline, and we'll find that out a little bit later. But they cast the spell, and naturally it goes completely awry. They awaken something that they didn't necessarily even know existed. This is kind of where we're going to go and merge a little bit more into spoiler territory. So if you have not read it or you do not want spoilers, go ahead, read the book, and then come back later. But so they awaken something that they are unsure of, and it looks a lot like the town's mayor, Mayor Anderson. And they really don't know what to do. They're starting to get really, really scared. And Trunk, as it turns out, like I said, is much more than a feline. He reports back to Babette almost immediately, and kind of tells her what's up. And so Babette is upset with the two of them for keeping secrets, but mostly wants to protect the girls and help them on this mission. She knows that Lucely can see ghosts, and so she's trying to get Lucely to tell her exactly what's happening with her fireflies and what could be happening, and they also tell her the spell that they cast. And it turns out this spell is a really powerful one, but in a bad way. And they've released a lot of ghosts and a lot of ghostly spirits that mean harm and are definitely not what they were hoping for. They were hoping, Sid and Lucely were hoping that they could contact somebody from this other side to ask about what exactly might be happening with Lucely's grandmother, and they kind of do the polar opposite. So now they have to backtrack and save it as best as they can. So Babette, being the cool witch that she is, has a bunch of magical tools to help them bust these ghosts. One of them is called Razzle Dazzlers, which is kind of just like a bright light out of a wand. And then in a really cute moment, they also get matching jackets. So they're like a little girl gang, which is really cute and fun. And they make a new plan to go back into the cemetery and try and figure out exactly what they did and how they can fix it. And it turns out it's this huge whole conspiracy with this Mayor Anderson, who's awakening all of these different spirits and entities who mean people harm. And so Babette, Sid, Lucely, they're all going into the cemetery with all of their ghost busting equipment to figure out exactly what's happening and how they can stop it and how they can make things better. And Lucely really has a lot on the line. Like, not only, as I said, has she lost her mother, but potentially she can lose her entire ghost family, which is really kind of what has shaped her whole personality and her being, her very sense of self in her life. She doesn't quite know who she'll be without this ghost family and how she'll get along, which again is a huge processing of grief. And not only is she processing this grief, but also trying to process financial hardships and potentially losing your home. And her dad obviously doesn't want her to worry about it, but it's really hard for her not to worry about it and not to have all of these pressures weighing her down, which is a huge impetus to figure out what is happening to her grandmother and the rest of her family's ghosts and how they can fix the situation that they started, plus help Lucely's family. So Lucely also gathers some of her ghost ancestors to help fight on their behalf, because this cemetery is now full of ghostly presences that all mean bad news. And they immediately get attacked. Babette gets attacked. Lucely manages to save her, and they kind of scramble away to regroup. So the city is having a really big Halloween party, and the whole town is invited, and Mayor Anderson is there. And now they know for sure that he is up to no good because they've seen him in ghostly form multiple times, and they're determined to take him down. So they go to this Halloween bash to try and stop Mayor Anderson's plans, because they figure out his plan is to just inhabit the town full of ghostly presences and basically get rid of everybody else. And Sid, Lucely, and Babette are not about to let that happen. So they're trying to figure out what the connection is between Mayor Anderson and this coven from the 1800s, because there were a couple different covens of witches who were very powerful, but also very powerful in protecting this town from a particular person. And that particular person is the one, her name was Eliza, and she is the one who's actually impersonating Mayor Anderson in this really grand, elaborate scheme where she is actually a ghost, but has somehow managed to impersonate and inhabit a body. And so they figure out her plan, and they're trying to fight her off, and they don't know how. And then all of a sudden behind them, they just see like a wall of ghosts. Everybody's running, everybody's screaming, and they're unsure what to do. And Lucely has the idea, like, hey, these razzle dazzlers are basically just light. Why don't we go to the lighthouse and try and shine a major beam of light onto this wall of ghosts to get rid of them? And that's exactly what they do. Lucely kind of almost, in a very heroic sense, sacrifices herself in order to make this happen. She's totally okay. She does get put into a coma for a couple days at the end, but does wake up. And the one thing that Lucely, not only her sense of self, but she might have to sacrifice her ghost family in the process to save her town. But they do manage to save the town, and they manage to save her ghost family as well. So they do get to have a happy ending. And Babette writes an article in the paper that says that, you know, these girls saved the town, but of course doesn't mention any of the ghost parts or any of the supernatural elements because people just wouldn't believe it, so she says. So they kind of get all of the glory and get to keep this ghostly adventure kind of under wraps. But it also turns out to be really beneficial for Lucely's dad's ghost tours. Obviously, these two girls are now celebrities. So he's booked solid for a whole year. So things have really turned around for her and her family. And she's able to, I think, be a little bit more of a kid and not have so many of these adult pressures of financial hardships and grief over losing loved ones in different ways and capacities. And I think ultimately, this is just a really lovely story of friendship. Sid and Lucely have just the cutest friendship. Those two really rely on each other, and they really understand and get each other and don't judge each other for their own little quirks. Sid also gets to be kind of an apprentice witch at the end of the book. And they just really love each other for everything that the other one represents and everything that they are. And I think that's just like, it's a really beautiful version of friendship that's just very uncomplicated, in the sense that you know that this person is your person and you can full rely on them, even as sometimes more than you may rely on your family. You can burden this friend with your burdens and kind of share the burden together. And Lucely and Sid are able to do that for each other. It's a really lovely version of female friendship that resonated a lot with me, and I hope it did with you as well. I know this was a little bit shorter of a discussion, but it is a little bit short of a book. I do hope you read it though. It is a really quick read, and it is a really fun one at that. It has a lot of really great characters, both animal and human. So I hope you give it a read. And I hope you join us next month. Next month, we are gonna do something really special with a special guest. We are gonna read After Parties by Anthony So. It is a short story collection by a local author who was born and raised in Stockton. So I hope you join us then next month.